The Wasteland, a barren mecca to its survivors. The world we inhabit in the Fallout series is a beautiful monument to humanity's socio-political degeneration. In this world, nothing is as it once was, as the landscape has changed and shifted into a twisted perversion of a nostalgic era, ravaged by mutated creatures and poisoned by disease and radiation. Despite the overwhelming odds, humanity continues to adapt and thrive in this inhospitable ecosystem. And in the case of super mutants, evolve. To even begin to understand the super mutants of the Mojave, we must first understand the complexity of their origins. These mutants aren't born out of radiation like you would think. In fact, they really aren't born at all, but rather created. It all started in 2102 when a man named Richard Gray led an expedition to a pre-war military facility in Southern California. In the aptly named Mariposa military base, there was housed a dark secret buried deep within it. A substance that Gray would soon come into close contact with and kick off a chain of events that would change the Western world as we knew it. As the expedition team had neared the base, mutated creatures had begun to attack the group. After sustaining casualties, the group was forced to take shelter within the base itself. During this period, Gray had run into a bit of misfortune, having been knocked off his feet by a moving crane and into a vat of strange liquid. This liquid would come to be known to us as FEV, or the Forced Evolutionary Virus. This chemical agent is a catalyst for human transformations into that of super mutants. That said, not every human will become the type of mutant we are familiar with. In fact, most wouldn't survive the mutation process at all. Case in point, Richard Gray. After a massive and prolonged exposure to the FEV, Gray mutated into a large, grotesque mass. While he may have lacked in looks, he made up for it with his staggering intellect. The FEV had dramatically increased Gray's cognitive abilities. Soon he began solving complex philosophical quandaries with evident ease, as well as conducting his own experiments with the Forced Evolutionary Virus. It wasn't long after this development that he formulated a grand vision of a unified species. Taking up the mantle of the Master, he started experiments into creating a perfect mutant species out of humans. There were some issues, of course, as exposing humans who were heavily irradiated or previously exposed to small enough amounts of FEV to not fully mutate mostly resulted in a failed mutation. The Master circumvented this by having his successful mutants raid vaults in the nearby area to provide the Master with a steady supply of untainted humans. This proved extremely successful. By the year 2162, the Master had amassed an army of super mutants known as the Unity, and planned to turn every human into super mutants, by force if necessary. Most mutants were equally intelligent to their human counterparts, and made up the bulk of the Master's forces. We know them as Generation 1 mutants. Some within the Gen 1 ranks who exhibited further increased intelligence and other favorable traits were inducted into the Unity's special forces, the Nightkin. The Nightkin mostly acted as guards for the Master, being seen in Fallout protecting the Cathedral, which acted as the primary base for the Master since leaving Mariposa in 2155. However, they were also deployed in situations which required increased stealth and military capabilities, much like the modern-day Special Forces or Light Infantry. This class of mutant gets their unique moniker from the pre-war stealth boy technology they used to keep themselves concealed from the enemy. A technology that served them well whilst in the employ of the Master, but would not serve them well as the years progress. During the events of Fallout, the Master's great plans for the Unity are thwarted by us, the player, as well as the Brotherhood of Steel. Both the Master and the Mariposa military base are destroyed, leaving the Unity leaderless and without direction. This causes a majority of mutants to wander the wastes in search of purpose. While some try to integrate into society, finding jobs and the like amongst their human neighbors, the fate of some others is infinitely more bleak. By the events of Fallout 2, the Unity has completely disbanded, with the majority of mutants going their separate ways and traveling out from California in all directions. A select few stayed behind and formed the town of Broken Hills, where a mutant named Marcus acts as its mayor. This is a theme that appears to echo throughout the Fallout series, particularly with Marcus, as he is quite the adventurer. even being a companion to the Chosen One, our player character in Fallout 2. In 2241, a secretive organization of former government agents and employees known as the Enclave had secured a sample of FEV from the ruins of Mariposa Military Base. They would use this sample to conduct research into the creation of a bioweapon, with the intent of cleansing the wasteland of all mutations. Experiments involving the FEV had led to the creation of a new population of super mutants, known to us as Generation 2 mutants. They had many of the same physical characteristics as the mutants of the Unity, however, they lacked the intelligence of the first generation. Many of these mutants also attempted to integrate into society, as they lacked any other place to go, or purpose in their lives. Over the years, many mutants found their way to the Mojave Wasteland, including our old friend Marcus. Shortly after arriving, a mutant settlement started at the peak of Black Mountain. This settlement was founded by Marcus and was chosen due to its high levels of radiation, this being a natural barrier between the radiation-immune mutants and the weak and squishy humans. Over the years, many mutants had found their way to Black Mountain, including the second-generation mutants and many Nightkin, who had become extremely schizophrenic and volatile due to their overuse of the Stealth Boy technology. This dynamic eventually led to conflict amongst the settlement, which ultimately resulted in the Nightkin Tabitha forcing herself into leadership and forcing Marcus out. The schism that ensued on Black Mountain resulted in two distinct factions between the mutants of the Mojave, with Marcus moving on to form a new settlement high in the California mountains, with the intention of creating a safe haven for all mutant kind, and Tabitha maintaining a now hostile settlement at Black Mountain, with the intention of raiding human caravans and towns, resulting in the deaths of any squishy humans they encounter. The state of Utobitha was formed after Marcus was forcibly retired from Black Mountain, and the radio station that was used to inform the wasteland of a friendly mutant settlement was damaged, causing the broadcast to go down. Eventually, a very unlucky ghoul would visit Black Mountain with the intention of fixing their equipment so that the broadcast would play again. He succeeded, but not before he was imprisoned by Tabitha. With the radio repaired and operating, Tabitha began a new broadcast. A broadcast which played all the hits of the era, and included interludes of insane ramblings between compositions. This broadcast was intended to draw more mutants to the settlement of Utopitha. However, it also had a dual purpose, as it's intended not only to attract fellow mutants, but also to spread anti-human propaganda amongst the mutants of the wasteland, ultimately culminating in increased numbers of aggressive mutants roaming into the outskirts of New Vegas. While Black Mountain continues to be a thorn in the side for the Mojave Wasteland, Marcus's new settlement of Jacobstown proves to be a beacon of hope for all lost mutants, a pure diametric opposite to that of the state of Utopitha. When we find them amongst an old ski lodge high up in the mountains, a few things become immediately apparent. Marcus welcomes you at the gate, informs you of the rules of the town, and welcomes you to Jacobstown with open arms, despite your clear and evident lack of mutations. Amongst the town, you could find many mutants and Nightkin living in relative peace, and even a team of doctors working to actively cure the Nightkin's schizophrenia. They have become entirely self-sufficient, relying on big hoarders for meat, and rarely need to leave the walls of Jacobstown. This truly is a safe haven. Marcus puts in an enormous amount of effort into the creation of a safe space for the mutants of the Mojave, and he succeeds with Jacobstown. However, this sadly proves to be insufficient for a certain mutant. The Nightkin Davison used to be a captain in the Unity, and was in charge of several Nightkin, those of whom still follow him to this day. Davison and his troop were residents of Jacobstown prior to the events of New Vegas, and although Marcus did everything he could to help him, Davison got tired of waiting and decided to leave Jacobstown with his troops in search of more stealth boys. As they trudge through the wastes, they eventually find themselves in the ruins of a Repcon test site in search of a shipment of stealth boys that pre-war manifest stated to have arrived there. When we encounter them, they are locked in conflict with a cult of ghouls who also inhabit the facility, seeking not stealth boys, but rather the rockets that are currently being held in the basement of the facility, right by Davison and his hostile troop of Nightkin. This brings us to the present time of 2281. The mutants of the Mojave are clustered into these 3 large settlements, with a few stragglers dotted around the landscape. Each of the settlements have a wide diversity of quests that the player character can undertake, from helping Tabitha fix her robot Rhonda, telling Davison about the mistaken Stealth Boy shipment, and even assisting Dr. Henry in curing the Nightkin's schizophrenia. While the future of the mutants isn't exactly clear, I believe that with the player intervention, the future for all West Coast mutants can be a bright one. When we encounter Jacobstown, there's a band of NCR mercenaries at the camp attempting to start conflict so that the NCR has an excuse to roll in and kill all of the mutants. The fact that the NCR is taking this course of action against a peaceful mutant settlement isn't just deplorable, it's abhorrent. However, the player character can arrive and talk the mercenaries into leaving peacefully. This will at least, temporarily, keep the NCR from murdering an entire town of peaceful mutants. If the player character also cures a Nightkin's schizophrenia, the town thrives and is able to save countless lives, as well as work to alter the reputation of mutants on the West Coast. This task becomes infinitely more difficult, however, if the player character doesn't resolve the hostilities stemming from the Black Mountain mutants. Luckily, a peaceful option exists for us here as well. By sneaking into Black Mountain, we can find a sleepy robot named Rhonda in the treasure room at the summit. By repairing the robot, it wakes up and searches out Tabitha. When they are reunited, Tabitha is so overjoyed to have her friend back that she leaves Black Mountain forever to wander the wastes with Rhonda. We can also help Davison and his troop by informing him about the misplaced shipment of Stealth Boys. He won't be happy, but he and his Nightkin will leave peacefully to search for them. While these main factions constitute the majority of the mutants in the Mojave, there are more who have found their own way, independent of the other groups. From integrating into towns, to seeking sunken treasures, to selling wind Brahmin for profits, the mutants of the Mojave continue to find purpose in their masterless world. So if you see a friendly mutant pass you by on the street, give them a smile and a nod, and be thankful that you are here in the Mojave and not in a meat bag on the East Coast. Thank you so much for watching the video. I for one am extremely grateful that the mutants in the early Fallout games, as well as Fallout New Vegas, are written so well with such diversity and depth. It really adds to the replayability of these games in a significant way. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more Fallout lore content, and until we meet next, voile, amicus.